thank you everyone for being here. It's great to see some familiar faces and some new faces. I call Syracuse the town of 1 degree of separation, right? 1 degree of separation, which I think, I love that because I get to always meet somebody new. So thank you, Beth, for asking me to be here. And thank you to our panelists in advance for all the great knowledge you're going to share. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because it truly balances my work experience. I've been working in Syracuse for more than 25 years, and on the corporate side and now on the nonprofit side. So it gives me an interesting perspective because I can see different things happening in the community. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this today. Congratulations to the folks on the panelists who are winners of the Business of the Year Awards. You are all role models in our community. I look up to each and every one of you. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate that. And when you look at the nonprofit folks who are in the room on the panel, when you think about nonprofit life cycles, these organizations are stable, which means they have a lot of insight. Beth and Tim individually have a lot to offer, but their organizations are stable and they can share really the landscape of what's happening for us. So thank you, Beth and Tim, also for being here as well. We are here because there are a lot of organizations in this town who are very worthy of our time and our talent and our treasure. And they are providing very needed services. COVID has kind of thrown us all in a loop in many ways, but I think we're here to learn more holistically as well as what happened through COVID, but how COVID has impacted the opportunity for the nonprofits to be seeking support and how the for-profits have been able to give support during some fun and interesting times. We're really interested in learning how the for-profits have changed things up and how the nonprofits have changed things up, and if anything's going to stick. I know at Leadership Greater Syracuse, we're doing stuff differently, and we're like, I think we're going to keep that. Who knew, right? So with challenge comes opportunity, as they say, correct? So my game plan for today is from 9 to 9:45. We're going to ask the folks representing for-profit in Upstate. I know Upstate is here on the for-profit view, but they are, of course, a nonprofit, but they are very charitable and giving in our community. So we're going to ask those folks to talk from 9 to 9:45 with some predetermined questions that we've had put together. And then from 9:45 to 10-ish, we'll have Tim and Beth say a few words. We'll have questions for them about the impact of COVID and or generally thoughts on what's happening in the nonprofit sector. And then around 10-ish, we will open it up to Q&A so that we can have some real great back and forth with questions and answers. And then we'll do a wrap up at the very end to make sure we respect everyone's time and wrap everything up for the session. So I'd like to request all of our panelists to, if you're interested and available, put your contact information in the chat. If anybody who is participating in the program would like to reach out to you for more information, if you could add that. And while we will be having Q&A at the end, I would encourage some questions throughout because the panelists, there's quite a few of them. So while one person is speaking, someone else can maybe be answering it. I didn't think that would work, but it has worked in the Leadership Greater Syracuse world. So if you have a question, certainly pop it in the chat. If a panelist is able, then they can certainly answer it, but we will have questions in the end. So can we start with some introductions of the panelists? I would like our panelists to state your name, the organization where you currently work, and your role. And we can do this kind of quickly so that we can move straight through it. So we'll do that the way I see you all. So Linda, could you please start with sharing your name, your organization, and your role?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Linda Veet. I'm with Upstate Medical. I'm the AVP, Assistant Vice President of Community Relations, and also the Interim Chief of Staff for the President's Office.
Thank you, Linda, for being here. Alyssa?
Good morning. My name is Alyssa Veety. I represent M&T Bank as the Charitable and Community Relations Manager for the Central New York and Southern New York region.
Thank you, Alyssa. Penny?
Good morning. I'm Penny Gorney. I'm the Director of Marketing with Dermody Burke & Brown CPAs.
Thank you, Penny. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Mondello, AVP of Human Resources and Communications at SRC.
Thank you, Lisa. Beth?
Beth Trunpio, Executive Director, Ronald McDonald House Charities, Central New York.
Thank you, Beth. Tim?
Hi, Tim Maher. I'm a Development Officer with Arise. overseeing engagement, fundraising, and communication and marketing.
Terrific. Thank you all for being here. So we'll start with the first question. And we've decided that we're going to be fairly informal. We're not going to go down the row and ask everybody to answer the same question. But if I feel someone's not getting their airtime, I'll make sure we get them all in because you all are so deserving. And that is, let's just peel this onion right back and just say why. We live in a very charitable community, individuals and companies, very charitable. But I want to hear about, from the company side perspective, what is your why? Why are you socially responsible? Succinctly, who would like to go first with that?
So Upstate, as you know, has a three-part mission, right? But it's we care for patients, we educate, and we do research. But all of this is with an eye toward the community. So we always want to improve the health of the community, however it is. So, that's why we do a lot of volunteerism. I think we're socially responsible. We give a lot to agencies in the community. So I know that's the mission of Upstate, is to actually, patient care, research, and education, but to give back to the community.
Thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
I can jump in for a moment. We've always felt in the community that looking forward really means giving back. And just a real quick story, in 1956, when we were founded, our founders, the very first dollar that they made in the community, they didn't mount on the wall, put in a picture frame, they donated it back to the community. So that's always been our legacy. We feel like for over 60 years, if that dollar was placed in the community, we're going to continue to give back. And, now spread out throughout the state, we feel that that's a very strong purpose. We need to give back to the community. It's important.
Thank you, Penny.
And I can jump in as well. Obviously our responsibility is to be a good corporate citizen within the communities that we serve, obviously. So it's important that we're giving back, and we are only as strong as our community is. So if our community is not thriving and strong, then we as a bank are not strong. We as other entities and businesses are not strong. So the reality is we are all in this together. So we all have to kind of put our hand in and work together to kind of get things done to make our community thrive.
Thank you, Alyssa. Lisa?
And yeah, SRC is actually a not-for-profit, for those that don't know. So we're kind of an interesting, we're a company, we function as a for-profit company, but as a not-for-profit, part of our charter is to not only do research and development, but to give back. And while none of our customers are in Central New York, we are headquartered here, which is another interesting fact. So what we do it for is we want the community to be stronger so that it's a great place to live and we can attract employees. And of course, getting to work with all of you is definitely rewarding.
Thank you very much for providing. It really is about the why. So thank you for sharing that. And I think anybody who's on the call listening in, I want you to please think hard about that why. And there is more to just doing the right thing. There's a retention factor going on here. There's attraction of talent. There's a lot of right reasons to be involved in the community. So thank you for sharing that. I'd like to now ask the panel, how did you engage your employees before COVID, and what kind of tweaks did you make during COVID? And might any of those changes stick going forward? Now, I know your community giving programs are very robust, so we could give each of you a half an hour on that. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that right. But how did you engage your employees in the community before? And what did you change up during COVID? And might any of that stick? Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Great.
It's okay. So before COVID, M&T probably within the past few years has kind of developed our employees to have certain little resource groups within each of our different lines of business and whatnot, and across the line. For example, we've got iGen groups and Welcome CNY groups, and they all mean different things to different individuals, whether you're intermingling the seasoned employees with our newcomers, or we're welcoming new people, and they put these groups together basically. And in order for them to network and get to know each other, we've encouraged them to get out into the community to do volunteer opportunities, engage in the community, get involved, the whole bit. So we were on a roll there for a while until COVID hit. And we kind of restructured a little bit. Obviously, we haven't been able to get out in the community, but we've actually been doing a lot of virtual trainings, financial literacy, things that mentoring different schools and children, however we can get involved. We've been doing much more virtually, which I think will stick kind of going forward. I will say, not from a volunteer community standpoint, but, you know, as a bank, we were very involved in the payment protection program. So I'm going to guess and hope that most of the nonprofits that are out there right now, we're working pretty hard with our business bankers and making sure that they're getting funding and whatnot to get through this crazy year. I don't know if that's actually a volunteer effort or basically it was our job responsibility, but it did impact the community pretty big. So that was kind of what our focus was this year. We also did a few little things where we collected personal items, you know, shampoos, wrapping paper at Christmas, things like that, that we could have kind of put together. Again, drop off at one location and give out. Was it as robust as in the past? No, but we were still out there.
Great. Thank you,
Okay,
Melissa. And thank you for helping me with my PPP loan. I was handheld and I really appreciate that. And, you know, we're small, so it meant a lot. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I think one of the other things, just to kind of play off of that, is obviously we couldn't be back in the community in different situations where you're giving of yourself. But one thing I would stress, and I think it's important, is never shortchange yourself with your time and your expertise. In other words, I see a lot of you that I serve on with boards and committees, and that was done via Zoom. So encourage your young professionals to get involved in committees. Give of your time. It might be strategic planning. It might be financial. It might be an area that you have an expertise. So maybe it's not boots on the ground, but you can share your expertise. So I would strongly suggest that as well during these times.
And I'll just jump in to say that, you know, we actually have an employee-led committee called SRC Cares. And we turned it over to employees a few years ago where they decide where we volunteer and how we do that part. And there's an executive committee for the dollars. But as far as the volunteering, while we couldn't volunteer in person, we did some creative things. Military is one of our focus areas because we serve the military. And we were able to make them bracelets. They're called paracord bracelets. If you've ever seen them that they use, they're functional as well as fashionable. And so we had people, we sent them the materials and they made those from home. We also, for Volunteer Week in April, as you were probably all aware, in April, we tried to keep Volunteer Week alive. So we posted out information of how people could get involved, like Penny said, to volunteer your time and expertise virtually, to get involved, to donate money. So we were trying to refresh what Volunteer Week meant in a virtual world.
So I can just tell you a little bit about Upstate and what we did before the pandemic. And we continue to do it. We have what's called a Team Upstate. I think it's similar to what maybe SRC has. And it's a group of employees who are interested in volunteerism. And what we would do before COVID is adopt your cause. And it would be an agency in the community that our employees felt strongly about. Everyone would, submit their own nominations. And we would vote on it and decide that was going to be our Your Cause organization for that year. Well, we didn't do it in 2020. We will do it in 2021. But, we met on it and we have some ideas of some of the organizations that we might be supporting in the future. Again, this last year, it's been all virtual, unfortunately. But one of the good things, I think someone mentioned this already, but one of the good things also that came of it is, you come up with new ideas. And what we decided was to do mentoring, right, in the community. And we've been doing it virtually with some of the school districts and also with our own employees, because we have at Upstate, we have so many, we have 10,000 employees. And we have a group called Young Leaders, and the Young Leaders came up with a mentoring program for our employees. So, and all that in the mentoring will extend into the community as well. So those are just some of the different things that we've kind of worked through and came up with during COVID, just because we had to.
Thank you for all that. And I've heard some, what I believe are best practices, and that is having employees be partially involved in the decision-making process of what's moving forward. I am a firm believer that you will retain and attract employees if you involve employees in how your organization is going to be forward-facing out in the community. So that just leads to the big question of how do you balance that, right? So you have 10,000 individuals in terms of Upstate Medical University, you have, and SRC is in how many different communities across the country. So how do you find a balance between supporting the employees' interest and making sure that the organization is using their funds and their company time strategically, financially, responsibly? How do you find the balance, and how are you kind of structured so that you can meet employee needs and their interests and along with the company? Because it's important, because you need to do that, because you're not unlimited in terms of resources and funding.
Right.
So,
Right. So I know with Upstate, that's always a challenge, but we always pick agencies that, have the Upstate, that are part of the Upstate mission, which is in our case pretty easy, because we're so broad. But again, it's employee driven. So we want to know what matters to the employees, right? What's important. And, we have some funds that we are able to support the group with, and the team Upstate meets quarterly. So, I mean, it's a good group, and it's a cross section from across the university, across the hospital. We have members from all different sectors of our organization. So I think everybody does get a fair voice that way.
I think that's super important. Not everybody wins all the time, right? But when you're as diverse and have many different divisions, it's important to have representation from all different groups. Thank you, Linda. Melissa, how about you guys? How do you balance the corporate needs with the individual interests?
We had an eye-opening experience a few years ago. Well, maybe it was just my eye-opening experience. I'll put it that way. And I'm going to kind of fit off of what Linda just mentioned. For the most part, a few years ago, it was me trying to make the decisions, trying to pull the volunteers together. And it just was obviously we're not able to do that. So by engaging our employees, letting them make the decisions, of course, it still has to fit with, the mission of what we're trying to do in the community. We put more ownership on the employees to make decisions and decide where they wanted to focus on and whatnot, which is how the resource groups actually kind of came up within our organization. So now, they have a say, and they also have a small pot of money that we're able to give to them. And we all work together. And now I have a team of people that's helping with volunteerism and whatnot in our community versus, 5 or 6 years ago. And it was just me looking for help and whatnot. The other thing that's helped is, you talk United Way and all these other organizations that have these great websites that share all of the volunteer opportunities that are out there. That has also helped a great deal. And it's been a great resource to us to say, yes, I'm in the community, but I can't be everywhere. And being able to go find those resources where the needs are in our community have been very helpful. And our groups actually selecting, where they want to help out and where they can volunteer.
Terrific.
For SRC, we have 3 focus areas that are pretty easy to figure out: STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, because we need more engineers. Military, because that's who we serve, and United Way, because we think the United Way is a way to encompass the community support in general, and they're so good at understanding and vetting the organizations. So that goes a long way. So we do a big campaign where the company matches dollar for dollar what employees do out of payroll. So that has worked really well for us to encompass a lot. It is very difficult, especially in times like this, when you get more requests than you can possibly fund, or requests outside of those areas. Nothing against other organizations that don't fit within those focus areas, but you have to make a choice somewhere. So I think that's the hardest part of the job is having to say no to some really good causes.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Katie Hanlon, for putting up the resource on the chat on how to reach out to United Way and where you can get involved. And if we have time, I'll talk about Board Strong, which is something that's coming forward about connecting people. So if we have time for that. But Penny, was there anything more you needed to add, or how you balance employee interest with company interest?
I just wanted to speak to it. We're obviously one of the smaller organizations on the call with 90 employees. And I would say we probably start with the United Way as well. We do a campaign, I mean, based on the reach, based on the coverage that works for us. Also, we kind of work from various groups. We have an emerging leader group. We work with various sectors. So I don't have too much to add other than the fact that we do encompass and listen to everyone in the firm. Take that into consideration. And we'll also do surveys. We do surveys within our firm to say, you know, what are you interested in? You know, what gets you excited? What is the need? So I would say also put a survey out there. Listen, you know, listen to your employees.
Thank you. That is terrific. I've done some research recently in Onondaga County. If you went to taxexemptworld.com will show you that there are 3,888 tax exempt organizations in Onondaga County. Now, that's not fair because you're not going to donate money to Onondaga County. You probably are going to give money to SRC, upstate, or every little league, every mosque, church, whatever. United Way friends, I talked to Nancy and some foundation folks. They'll say there's about 1,000. There are about 1,000 nonprofit organizations that you would view as charitable that are looking for funding and need funding. So as a company, you know, when you look at what SRC has done with their strategy, you can't possibly say yes to everyone. No one can. Thank you for sharing with us the balance on how you involve employees, but also as a company have some bumpers so that it makes so that you can be your shareholders and or whomever see you as responsible. You're not just giving it all away, right? Because there's so many wonderful and they're very needed, so many. So thank you for that. I'm curious, we talked a little bit about that. If anybody wants to go into a little bit more detail with the large number of organizations needing supports, how do you make those decisions? I think we've got that covered. Many of you talked about your employees. I don't know if Alyssa or Lisa want to talk. I heard a little bit more about there's some company funds and then there's the team care or SRC Cares or Team Upstate gets some funding. How did you come to that conclusion, or maybe percentages, like 80% of what we give away comes from the corporate side, or if there any insight in case someone's setting up a formula where they work? How do you do this? Do you have any advice?
Well, it's ours has evolved, Pam, right?
Yeah.
We started out with just an executive level committee. And then we wanted to pass the volunteering over to employees. So we passed the volunteering plus the funding. Obviously, if they're making paracord bracelets, they need money to buy the supplies, or if they're going out, you know, sometimes giving them t-shirts and things like that. We also, the decision to match United Way funds comes from that same budget. And that was something that came from employee interest that, you know, matching United Way, that's a big chunk of our budget. We actually match almost $400,000 a year. So it's a big number to have to put out there. So it's a balance and it evolves, and I think it might change over time. So again, Penny mentioned listening to your employees and getting them involved, and that will help you. And the one last program I'm going to mention that we're very proud of is our community internship program, where we send community interns to volunteer, to work in United Way agencies, but we pay them. So the United Way agencies benefit with much needed resources, and our employees' dependents are able to make money and put something on their resume, but also they learn that feeling of giving back and getting involved in the community. And that's one of the big parts of that program. So that's kind of how we've evolved.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing the evolution, because I think every company has to evolve. Employees are going to demand that they be active in the community. The calls are going to come in. You're going to get those phone calls. So, and you can't just stick with the plan that you made in 1952. Like, things are changing and the workforce is changing and their demands are changing. Anybody else want to compliment or add to that conversation, that part?
I think we kind of do it the same way as Lisa described. I mean, it changes, right? We give Team Upstate some dollars to work with, as I explained, for whatever we decide is important as a group, whatever the cause is. But the amount of money changes. It's not a set amount every year.
And then beyond that, there's some, I'll call them corporate funds, where you are strategically making decisions. Those corporate funds are probably not going to animal rescue because you are a human organization, right? So
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
correct. I mean, it has to fit our mission.
Right, and I think when you have that aligned, it gives you the right to say no, and the pride to say no. It's difficult. I was in this position where I previously worked, and if you don't have some bumpers around it, you know, and you can go forward with confidence because here are our priorities. So saying no, it's okay to say no because you simply can't.
Yeah,
Penny, or
and
this-
I'm just going to add one other thing. I think it's important for us anyway that the money stays a little local, right? So, you know, it's for upstate anyway, it's, you know, we serve 17 to 21 counties. You know, we do have a regional reach, but we know if our employees give their time, give their money, give in upstate does, you know, we want it to stay local to a point. So that's important to us.
Yeah, and I agree with Linda 100%. The dollars that we're doing for Central New York here within this region stay in Central New York. They're not going outside of this area. And when we make decisions with our employees on who we're going to support, we do it as a group. And the funds are not separate buckets. We kind of do it together. And as long as it fits within our mission and what we're looking to do, and it has an impact in the community that's going to address, you know, a larger impact, a larger group of individuals, then it's something we would support. We take it case by case. And we have nice, long, lengthy discussions and plan it out. Too
One
long,
thing
maybe,
to add on, too long. One thing to add on that, SRC, again, as we're headquartered in Syracuse, we actually have offices across the country, San Antonio, Dayton, DC. So it gets harder for us because we're corporate. We have to give some philanthropy and volunteerism to the other locations. So what we found that works well is finding organizations that are in all of our locations. So Honor Flight is a great example. They support the military. They're in all of our major offices. They offer an aspect of volunteering. So we give them some money, but we also have groups of employees that go to the airport to meet the honor flights and that volunteer. So that to us is the best case scenario when you can give money, when you can have the employees engaged in volunteering, and when you can have that focus with our mission.
And have it be across all your facilities so that
And have it be across.
And people get nervous, I think, about bragging rights. And I find this a very interesting conversation across the community. We're just donating because it's the right thing to do. And we don't want credit for it.
Right.
And we got a lot of studies to share on what the new workforce wants. They want to work for socially and people want to do business with. So please start sharing what you're doing. And for SRC to talk about that in every market that they're in, that's a beautiful thing, right?
Well, the coolest was, if you don't know what Honor Flight does, is they bring World War I and II and Vietnam vets to DC to see the monuments as an honor and a tribute to them. We had our Dayton group there and our Syracuse group at the monuments at the same time. And we actually had people meeting together. It was just like one of those cool Kismet things.
Penny, any other thoughts on how you make decisions internally and balance it and with large number of requests and how you say no?
Well, I think probably just to support what Lisa said and everyone else, we start with a budget. I mean, we do have a budget at the beginning of the year that has been approved. That doesn't mean things can't change as needs changed. And obviously they did this year. So we actually upped our budget. I'd say we start with that. And then, as I mentioned before, we take on requests. We're in 4 markets across Central New York. We look at all the various markets. And I just wanted to throw one thing out there because Pam, you said something about social responsibility. And it also made me think about social and social media. And I was just thinking, you know, another way to promote companies, and I look at Katie because we do this all the time, is if there is an activity that is going on with a charity, we have the potential through our network to reach out and support that. Like I know they were doing a Mother's Day opportunity with the United Way. Don't forget the power of that with your outreach, what you can do. You're not giving money, but you are sharing stories. You are sharing with your network. So I got off topic a little bit, but I didn't want to forget that point because I think it was important to mention.
Thank you, Penny. I'm starting to learn about Google Analytics. And I'm getting, thank God for volunteers who are on my marketing committee, and we're able to see who's going where and what they're looking at and all that kind of stuff. And the share potential is unbelievable, and the tagging and all that. And people who are qualified, get them in your corner to help do all that, because I will share with you that measuring is very important. The companies who kind of just don't have a budget, don't really have a plan, are actually hurting themselves. I've got the stats behind to prove this. If you're going to be involved in the community, have a plan, have a budget, have a strategy, because if you're kind of just somewhat out there, you will hurt your image. And we're not, imagine having the opposite effect from an image perspective. Yes, you're helping nonprofits, but these all go hand in hand. Obviously, you want appropriate reputation out there in the community and use it to your advantage. So absolutely do all the tagging. Awesome. So my last question for this group is, do you have any other advice for companies who are maybe not so strategic or are just getting involved or maybe don't have a budget? Do you have any advice for those who are getting started? Anything else to add?
My only advice is to get the employees involved. They are the key to what makes things happen. If they're passionate and they're ready to get out in the community and they want to do it, they're the feet on the ground. They want to do it. That's the key to making sure that we're building a stronger community. It's all about our employees.
Agree, Alyssa. And I think part of that extends to, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of you. Work with the nonprofit organizations, ask what they need, right? Sometimes we were trying to provide support that they didn't need. So, getting what they need is important. And working with each other. We've had the good fortune of all working together, networking in different things through United Way. There's lots of groups, LGS, that bring people together. That's where we've evolved and learned. So I've really valued that over the years.
Terrific.
I would also suggest that you offer training to your employees. You could do some in-house training. What's it like to be on a not-for-profit committee? What's it like to be on a board? What does a financial statement look like? I mean, go through kind of corporate responsibility on what is expected of you, because I think that makes especially emerging leaders feel so much more comfortable. I know, Pam, you're involved in that too. And I would just suggest that, because then people are more comfortable to give back and get involved.
Penny, I'm so glad you brought that up. Nourishing Tomorrow's Leaders, which Pam is very familiar with. We are actually doing that right now at M&T Bank. And we've got about 25 people, 25 of our up and emerging leaders going through this. Actually, it's a 10-week program. And we're doing it in-house, and it is phenomenal, the feedback we've gotten, and we're training and teaching our younger, newer, inexperienced employees the importance of the community and being out there and what it takes, to be on a board, because you just don't sit on a board. There's work involved, right? So there's a lot there. So we're going to have here at M&T and across their community, we're going to have a bunch of employees ready to be on your boards, guys. So keep in touch with us. Thank you for bringing that up. That's an excellent point. I forgot about that.
For those of us who've been in the community so long, the white man in the corner of that corporate office said, okay, we're going to give this much money and you're going to do this. And people would get on boards. They had no idea what they were doing. The company had no plan or about it. And the tide has totally changed, and there's a benefit. The younger workforce, they want advancement in their company. They want to be out there. And what better way to train them on their soft skills? But don't send them out blindly. I mean, you can't just get on a board and have no idea what you're doing, because there are responsibilities. So kudos to you for doing training. And Nourishing Tomorrow's Leaders is also a program that's offered in the community. It is purposely marketed to people of color, because we need more people of color on boards as well. Talk all day about that. But let's get to Beth and Tim. And I really am interested in now hearing the other side. And please, again, continue to send any questions through the chat. But the world has changed in the last year. Your organizations have been rock solid, offering amazing services for our community for many years. I view you as a stable in the life cycles of a nonprofit. But I'm curious, just tell us the real scope. Like, what has happened to your organization and since COVID has hit? How has the pandemic affected your opportunity to fundraise, your events? So how do you do that? And then maybe now that you may have not had access to volunteers. So Beth, could you start us off and tell us about the impact, please?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Thank you for the time. I think that, it's multifaceted. I could talk about fundraising. I could talk about operations. I could talk about programs. I could talk about all those things. And I think for all nonprofits, I'm sure, that are in health and human services, particularly in providing programs, COVID really, kind of swept the rug out from under us. And we had to really think about how we were going to be able to safely continue to provide services. So for us, early on, we temporarily closed. And because we weren't able to directly serve families on site, we transitioned some to a hotel and were able to take care of those who were with us during that time frame. And then also we're able to turn over our house to frontline healthcare providers and provided that to the Upstate medical team, who was really, at that front line. And so that was really an important way for us to be able to, look at our program differently and, be innovative. But, the cost, I think the cost of doing business now, of providing programs, is much greater than before. So it's costing us more to do our modified programming. So we have since reopened in September. We have a 4-phase plan. So again, safe, healthy, but it requires what many of the businesses and other organizations. Do you have the PPE? Do you have the human resources? Are people comfortable staffing 24/7? So, and with that, again, comes, cost. And for us, one of the greatest impacts was to our meal program. We kind of feel like, where the rubber meets the road is providing those families who are with us a home cooked meal. And we all know that restaurant industry was devastated. So we have always had a partnership with restaurants, but also corporations and businesses. Some of you have had folks come in and cook on site and make meals for our families. That's not something we were able to do or are currently able to do. Looking forward to eking towards that again in the coming months. So how are we going to take care of families? And, we reached out to businesses, organizations, the community, and, they started to give to us in a different way. There were grants available for operating income that had not previously existed. That was always the most difficult grant to get. They were local. The Boeheim Foundation supported us. So nonprofits helping nonprofits, right? As well as businesses helping nonprofits and helping us to take care of, those families that were in hotels. Businesses started to, give to us a little bit differently. Help us with gift cards and meal donations as well. So, we had to shift how we were doing things. And then certainly our fundraisers, everyone went virtual, right? So could you have, the most interesting virtual event? Fortunately, we already had an online auction capability. So that wasn't a big learning curve for us. But how were we going to spread the word and get folks engaged? So, and sponsorship is still very important to us, and we know that it's difficult for businesses. Some businesses actually have thrived during the pandemic and are able to continue to support. I will say we haven't lost support. People started to give a little bit differently. Some were able to give more. Some were able to give even individuals monthly. And then, I'll stop here because I know we're going to talk about how to engage employees. So I want to let our other partner have a chance to speak.
Thank you, Beth. Tim, could you just please, sometimes I know I get confused with different organizations' names, like Ronald McDonald House has name recognition, Arise. Can you please share what Arise, the purpose, your mission of Arise, and then share with us how COVID impacted you?
Sure, and that's one of the what we're looking at promoting more as a mission. But Arise is an independent living center that supports individuals, providing them the independence to live their lives and realize their dreams. And that can be through mental health, that can be through freedom from nursing homes, through our Ombudsman program. We have a great RAMPS program, adaptive design program. it's really about allowing those with disabilities to experience the freedom of an independent life. Been around 40 years, since 1979. So one of the challenges that we face at Arise is that brand, actually. And I think one of the benefits of the COVID pandemic was the fact that I think it emphasized the strength and the importance of community and all that are in our community, and really identified a lot of the hidden heroes in our community and the hidden initiatives that are put on by our profit and corporations in our communities that we take for granted. And I think when we look at the non-for-profit sector and the work that's done in this non-for-profit sectors, many of them were emphasized because those needs were magnified as we became isolated, and in many cases, it was more difficult to receive those services. And here at Arise, we were able to switch into telehealth pretty quickly, cater some of our programming. We had a lot of work to do with that, and that did happen fairly rapidly, and was able to keep the organization functioning. The impact on the other side of the organization. So there's the great works and programs that not-for-profits provide, and then there's the ability to engage the community in a way that supports the work of a not-for-profit. So if it's from these great mentoring, leadership, volunteer programs that were spoken about earlier, which are wonderful because all boards need to be diversified and constantly be evolving to bring in change and bring in new ideas and bring in growth. But here at Arise, I wasn't here last spring, but the auction happened and a virtual event occurred. And one thing that we're looking in, I'm glad Penny brought up social media. We're really looking at it now as strategic media, and that, you know, a year in, here we are with Zoom calls and social and media events on social media. So we're really looking to partner with our corporations here in the community in a mutually beneficial way. And that is really creating the awareness that was mentioned earlier. How can we create awareness, and how can we support our corporations? One way we want to do that is looking to have actually sponsors on all our social media platforms. We're able to celebrate the great work of our corporations. At the same time, they're able to celebrate the great work of the not-for-profit community by featuring, say, Arise on their social media platforms. And we're able to return the service here at Arise. So we're really starting to look at how we'll continue to engage through social media in those audiences. And as you know, Pam, as you mentioned, when you got into some of the social media analysis, you really can reach a larger sector of the community socially than you can through the hard mailing. So mailing still is important, direct mail, but as far as media, social media, I think those have been emphasized over the last 12 months, and individuals have become really more reliant on that for information. And in some ways, I think, in a way, we've become a kind of a culture where we've realized that it's easier to get our food through a drive-through. It's easier to get our information through a click. It's easy to donate through a click. It's easier to get involved through a click. It's easier to promote by clicking on my screen. So I jump in the gun. I know what's going to stick, and I think that's the pasta that's going to stick to the wall. I think we've been conditioned now in a way to yes, appreciate sitting down and having a vibrant meal, but also understanding that time, our personal time, is of value now because we've been able to experience what it's like to have time. And so here at Arise, we're really looking to maximize the social media and get our brand out now.
Just fantastic. And it's a great lead into the next question. And I need you to speak on behalf of your organizations, but also if you could wave the magic wand and speak on behalf of others, what do the nonprofits need in a good, and it is a partnership. It's not just hand over the check and walk away. You can do that. We will take all money. I'm speaking from the nonprofit sector. Green, we love it. Cash is king. But what are you looking for in a corporate partner or someone who believes in your mission? Has it changed? What do you need most? And maybe what do others need most as well?
I think we'll tag team back and forth, right? I really liked what Lisa said, which was have a conversation. And we had one recently with a partner who had been involved, in sponsoring an event, but they said, what more could we do? So, a team of us got on a call and really had, 30-minute max conversation about how your employees could get involved. What kinds of, programs are we, trying to launch, or how do we need to support our current programs? There were some ideas on how we could be more innovative, and, how they could, how we could partner with regard to social media, but also, hands-on. So, and with that came some, great conversations. We have a Red Shoe Society. So talk about emerging leaders. And I see Stephanie Jonkus is on. She popped on. She's one of our Red Shoe Society members. So, getting your employees involved with nonprofits, if there's, an opportunity like we have. We also, not to forget about young people, we have high school students, also our youth board. So if you have high school students at home, great way. I will tell you, every time we get off a call with them, they are so smart, especially with regard to social media. They did a whole Instagram takeover, but they also, they impress me with their commitment to service, and they're so capable. They are like running circles around, the rest of us. So, that's one thing, that we are looking for. So lots of ways, to get involved, but I think those individual conversations, talk to your employees, who are they involved with? But as the leaders, we know that oftentimes you look to your employees to say, who are you interested in supporting? And we also want to make sure there's mission alignment as well. Really interested, we've had a relationship with all of the corporate partners here over our time at the Ronald McDonald House. And, sometimes, depending on what we're doing at that time, it is an ideal fit. And then, sometimes, we shift, each of us, and then we're back aligned again. And I think that that's what we have to, continue to remember and again, have those conversations. Love the idea of financial fitness for our guest families. So I'm already thinking of new program ideas. We're looking at doing, updating our playroom to be more, have more technology and some STEM approach. So my brain's already popping. We had some help from Germany this year as we were navigating this process in a volunteer capacity. So we appreciate that.
Tim, what are you looking for in corporate partners, or what do you think all others need most in a corporate partner?
Well, I think the operative word is partner. I think it really, when it comes to relationship building and engagement and fundraising, which is always the dirty word, but when it comes to those, it's really about the relationship, and it's really making sure that the missions are aligned, and that the passions are aligned, and the priorities are aligned. And then it becomes a true partnership. And that means organizations are then, and their staff are invested in the mission of the not-for-profit, and the not-for-profit is invested in the staff and the growth of the organization, because it becomes mutually beneficial, but also a true partnership. And that's when we get back to that pipeline of board members coming in, because it's part of the, it's part of the organization. So the organization has individuals who believe in the mission, who want to be part of the not-for-profits that they are supporting. And then it becomes this really exciting circle of life. And, and it becomes about affinity. Certain organizations have affinities for certain non-for-profits, and that's fine. I mean, it's not a one size, oops, someone's trying to call me and they never do. Is this someone from the call trying to call me? Once I put out my contact information, my phone's ringing off the hook. But it really is that partnership. And I think that's important, in the affinity. And that's what we're focused on. And that's where, before I was at RISE, those were always the values that the organizations I was with, we focused on. And I think, I think of the great work that all the not-for-profits in this community do, and it's really making and looking to partner with those that support those, And Beth, about 20 years ago, when I was in my acting days, I performed at the old Ronald McDonald House. So it was
Wow.
It was great. I love the Ronald McDonald House, by the way.
We'd love to have you back.
Anytime.
Tim, I will just say great points. And one thing we've done is we actually start our relationships with organizations by having the volunteer relationship and getting employees involved. Because I know once an employee gets involved and realizes the great work you're doing, then they want to get other employees involved and they want to give money. And so it's a great way to kind of build that relationship and get people connected to the different great work that you're doing. So
Can I
good
add one
point.
more thing?
Sure.
All right. You invited me, but I mean, the other thing that we're trying to do, and I don't want to get into fundraising, but we want to make it, because of the engagement and the demographics, and when somebody brought up getting younger individuals involved, we want to make it comfortable for all demographics to be able to have some type of philanthropic engagement. And so we're really interested in engagement participation numbers and even fundraising participation numbers. So we're really emphasizing that, you know, even $1 makes a difference, and volunteering makes a difference. Whatever you do makes a difference. So anyway, that's
I think that's an excellent point, Tim. And I think new knowledge is that back in the old days, you know, you had to be a vice president to be on a board, and you had to bring all these big dollars with you to be on a board. Number one, every nonprofit needs qualified board members.
Yeah.
Every nonprofit needs board members who are willing to roll up their sleeves and actually do something. It is an amazing employee development tool to allow your employees to represent you on the board.
Yep.
So I think some things have changed for the better, and I think that's very exciting. And I thank you so much, Tim and Beth. And the other piece of advice I want to give too is, you know, Ronald McDonald House and Arise are stable nonprofit organizations. There are a lot of small nonprofit organizations that we need to give some grace to. You bring a team of employees to show up and they're like, oh, you know, we are corporate America, and we're like, get it done. We got our list. Why weren't there enough shovels for everybody to dig the dirt? Why weren't there enough gloves? Why weren't there? And it's and I think the for-profit sector has to give some grace to the nonprofits to say, it's hard to take on a group of volunteers sometimes. And this is why they need you, but give in other ways. I've seen it many times that some nonprofits, it's hard. Managing volunteers is a job. And some organizations do not have the capacity to have someone to manage volunteers. So give grace. But also that's when you can pitch in and do your part and say, you know what, I'd like to volunteer with you. Maybe I'll be your volunteer coordinator to help you with that. The other part I've seen too is, and I'll speak to all my nonprofits, all 3,888 of us. Do not overpromise and underdeliver. It's very, you know, nonprofits, if you say you're going to do it, do it. So when you're engaging with your employees and you're getting them involved, make sure they're the employee that are going to do what they say they're going to do. It's very discouraging and it's hard. Some people, even in my organization, they say, oh, LGS should do this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to end up having to do this all myself eventually because you're going to go away. And it's a horrible negative place to be. But there's some realities. So please, in the for-profit sector, when you have your employees out getting involved, make sure that they will commit to what they promise they're going to do. And teach them to not overcommit. It's okay. All the nonprofits need help, but please don't overcommit them. So I just got on a little bit of a soapbox there, just from personal experience from being on both sides. So thank you. Let's see, social justice. So brand activism is a thing now, right? Like, am I eating here? Am I buying there? Am I doing whatever? This is all, this is evolving. So I don't know if some of the for-profit folks would like to add anything about what they've done. Thank you, Lisa Mandela, for supporting the chat to share what you're doing. But social justice is absolutely front and center where it should be. So does anybody have any thoughts on your commitment to social justice issues or support? So that concludes our formal questions. I'd like to move into some Q&A. Any other live Q&A? Beth, I don't know if you can open the mics for people or if someone has a question for this outstanding group of panelists that you didn't. Burning questions. Who wants to know what? Oh, platforms. Excellent question. And for some are more sophisticated than others. What online platforms are being used and managed for the for-profit folks? How are you managing? I think that's the question. Well, what programs are being help manage teams, volunteers, sponsors, and donors? SRC, you're right at the top of that. I know that personally. SRC, how are you managing your employee volunteerism from an organizational platform perspective?
We actually tried a platform called Angel Points that was across all of our sites, and it was supposed to allow us insight into volunteer opportunities. But the problem with that is that certain organizations post their opportunities in one platform and certain in another. And so we didn't have the real view. So we've actually gone backwards to not using a full system, and we use the employee resource group to kind of manage that. And we have a lead person at each location that manages the volunteer efforts. And then we use a simple spreadsheet and an ACT database for the financial part.
So I can jump in here. We at Upstate, we don't have like a certain platform that you're talking about, but we do have our own internal platform where people can log their own volunteer hours. It's in there. It's called self-serve. It's in there where we record everything like trainings and time and you know, things like that. So people can record their own volunteer hours and get a record of that whenever they need it.
And then Linda, you can pull from that in an aggregate to see where people are doing and what they're doing?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. We also record all our community programs in there as well. If someone's part of you know, we do so many things in the community, so many, whether it's, you know, healthcare programming or whatever, that's always in there as well with the lead people in the group. So, and it's nice because we can pull it and we can share it with other people. So we're not duplicating efforts in the community as well. With so many employees, it's, you know, that's actually a concern.
And then I think from the nonprofit standpoint, so I read that question in a different way. So, you know, there might be some questions. I don't know if there's nonprofits on this call or not, but certainly it's something you can, you know, there are a lot of different platforms for, you know, helping support your boards and manage your boards, but also track volunteers and donations online. So, you know, if anyone's interested, you can reach out to me, or I'm sure Tim, you know, directly.
We do something similar too with tracking time. Like Linda, we have a category called Club Civic. So that time is entered into our system so that the end of the year, well, fortunately or unfortunately, CPAs are time-based. So you can also see at the end of the year how much Club Civic time has been given, and that is rewarded, and that is looked upon as positive. So I don't know if I would call it a platform. We don't have a platform for managing our volunteer, but we do look at hours. And I just wanted to share that as well.
At M&T, there's too many platforms to talk about because you're talking, you know, 8,000 employees and scattered all around. We do track hours. We get 40 hours per year for volunteer hours and whatnot. You know, grant applications go into one platform. It's scattered about. So any conversation I have right now about that will not mean anything to anybody. Sorry.
There's a nice follow on to that it is, like I said earlier, it's important to track. What do you do with that information when you track it? Is it an internal document or is it stuff that you use for the bragging rights out in the community? What do you do with that information?
It's both. It's internally to make sure that our employees are doing the right thing and we're in the community and we're doing what is expected and what is right for the community. It's also, you know, we're a bank, I got to be honest, you know, it's also for CRA activities to make sure, again, we're doing the right things in the community. It's tracked, it's analyzed, it's looked at, there's actually, it goes in depth. It's big.
I also want to make sure, Yvonne, did we answer your question? I know we touched on social justice in supporting those causes, but you had asked the specific question in the chat, and I want to make sure we answered that for you.
Hi.
Hi, Yvonne.
How are you? I think my question has been pretty much answered. You know, there's just so much going on. You know, you all had alluded to last year, and my mind immediately went to Black Lives Matter, you know, CNY Pride type things happening in the LGBTQ community and Asian hate. That's where my mind went. I kind of totally forgot all about COVID. But yeah, I know that, you know, individuals are important, but corporations really help lead the way in supporting and bringing attention to and affecting change when it comes to social justice. And I know it can be risky to take a stand one way or the other. So I was just kind of curious, how the panelist companies were handling that. I think I got an answer on that. What I would like to see if Lisa might be able to elaborate just a tad bit on is the what did you call it? The community interns. Just a little bit. Is it like just an hour-based thing, or days, months? How does that work? Because that's interesting.
It's a summer-based program. So
Okay.
college age dependents of our employees, they have to be a dependent of our employees, they register for the program and apply, and then they get a summer job, basically an internship like at United Way or at one of the United Way agencies. And then we pay their salary, and they work anywhere from usually 20 to 35 hours.
Okay, great.
And I actually just heard a great one that one of our last year's interns came back, and the program doesn't start till June 1st. So for the month of May, he's home from college and working at the place launched that he worked last year. So it's definitely making those relationships and teaching the kids about being civic minded.
If I could add, especially why I love this program with SRC is that so many folks in corporate America are just on the receiving end of requests. People are approaching us. They're asking us for money. SRC saw a need for employee retention, good stuff. They wanted their employees or whatever, and they created this program. So be mindful that if you don't see it, create it. Again, I'll say maybe not create a 501c3 around it, because partner in that way. But if you're on the corporate side and you have a business need and an employee need, and something doesn't exist, absolutely be creative around that, because I think it's strategic and it makes a lot of sense.
Can I just jump in on Yvonne's previous question? Arise is also an advocacy group. So we are also a civil rights group that fights for the advocacies and the rights of those with disabilities. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Who else? Who has the next question, as we say in LGS, right? My LGSers, who has the next question?
Stephanie Junkus has a question. She had her hand raised.
I did. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys all for your time today. I really appreciate it. This has been such a robust conversation, and I don't have enough paper to keep writing everything down, so I really appreciate it. I currently work at Equitable. You may all know it as formerly AXA Equitable Life. And since we went public last year in 2020, we've reevaluated and refocused our foundation. And we have new pillars that we're currently being looked at from a board perspective. My question is if organizations that we had previously supported don't align with our future, how do you slowly back away, I guess, from those relationships and be kind and understanding of the relationship that you've had maybe for many, many years? And we're across the country too, so it may not be just Syracuse based. It may be, somewhere in Texas where we have to break relationships. So I'm open to any suggestions, wording, etc.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's being slow and honest and empathetic. And so we've had to have that relationship. In the beginning, we were kind of all over the place, and then we made these focus areas and having discussions, sorry, you don't really fit in our focus area. And so you don't just yank, your support all at once. So can you reduce it slowly? Can you offer them volunteers when you have to take away the financial support? It's a hard message. And again, saying no is the worst part of the job, especially, Pam mentioned like Upstate saying no to maybe SPCA. It's a great organization. We all love animals, but I totally understand why they wouldn't necessarily support that. And so hopefully people on the other end understand that too, but I think slow and gradual is the key.
Yeah, Lisa, you're right. It's about being transparent and just being honest. And, I've had to have these conversations many times. And I think Beth even mentioned earlier, things come around. And my thing with it, the mission's changed, but things change daily, as we've learned this past year. So my key with everybody that I work with is to have open communication and always keep, me, for example, in the loop of what's going on, because even though we may say no now, as long as I know what's going on going forward, you're always in my mind. I know what's happening. And if something comes up, we can kind of change that. So they're hard conversations, absolutely. But they happen, unfortunately. And it's being transparent and honest, just like Lisa said.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's it's key. And we all have to realize leadership's priorities sometimes change as well. So just because we've supported, and specifically Upstate, just because we've supported a large, agency for a number of years doesn't mean that we're always going to continue. We do have to be fair too. We have to be equitable and give everyone not equal support, but we've got to balance that as well. And that's hard because sometimes they don't understand that we're pulling away from one, but we're going to put our resources into another.
And go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, Linda, that's a great point. I think Yvonne said it earlier on the social justice. Sometimes it's timing. Like, if you remember the year that there was like 3 or 4 hurricanes, we did an employee match to Red Cross for the hurricane relief. But by the 3rd or 4th hurricane that year, we couldn't, right? I mean, so, why are we supporting Black Lives Matter and not Asian hate or something else? Sometimes it's really just timing. And hopefully, again, people understand that there's a limited scope here. And so those are always just be honest and have the discussions, and somebody's not going to be happy, but it is what it is, right?
I was just going to say, as a nonprofit, the most important thing is just getting back to us. Because like we often have like first right of refusal. So like I'm waiting on sponsors and you're waiting and you're calling and you're email. Like if you don't want to come back, it's okay, but you have to tell us because we might be holding something because you get first right of refusal, or we need, I think sometimes the honesty part is you don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation, but in the meantime, we're like, well, we just need you to respond to us sometimes. And that I'd say is the hardest part, is often we're waiting.
I'm with you, Nikki. I hear that quite often, and I see it even in leadership Greater Syracuse part. We do have across companies are fewer people doing more work. It's tough out there, and you need people to respond back as well. It's a two-way street. We need our companies to respond back about their answer, and we need the companies to be graceful when organizations aren't quite ready for you and all your wisdom and all your gifts. So it's not easy out there. And I will share that when I was giving away the money when I worked in my previous life at Bristol Myers Squibb, just psychologically, I would line up all my no's and then my yeses, because it's hard. I mean, and people say, "Oh, what a great job, you get to give away the money." You're saying no more than you're saying yes. So it's hard. And you're saying no to very worthy organizations. So psychologically, that's how I handled it. I put my nose in, I called them all, and then I said my yeses. And I knew, and the other part is when you're saying yes and when you're saying no, you are impacting people's lives. That's a lot. That's heavy. By saying no, you're impacting lives. And by saying yes, you're impacting lives. So for me, I had to line up my nose with my yeses. It's hard. Who has the next question?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy James from the Alzheimer's Association. Thanks so much for holding this session. It's very, very good information. But a question that I have, because I heard from many of the companies about employee resource groups, and wondered how you as companies are helping and supporting your employees that may be interested in volunteering, either as a board member or maybe on an event planning committee, to make that connection. And I ask that because, many of us in the nonprofit world have education programs and different informational sessions that we can bring to kind of introduce who we are, what we do in the community. But wondered if there's online, I know there's volunteer match and so forth. What are ways in which you're helping to support your employees to get the best match that they possibly can with a cause that they are looking to get involved in? Thanks.
I can start with that. We have got approximately 400 M&T employees within the Central New York region, and that includes the Utica area as well. And within that 400 and some odd employees, we've got about 175 people on different boards that represent, I think, about 200 different boards. We encourage our employees to be out in the community and be part of boards. And as part of the boards, we're always going to find some way to support them, whether it's through volunteers or through a small donation. But of course, it still has to fit the mission of what we're looking to do. So of course, if it's volunteering and whatnot, it's great. We want them out there. We will support them. But for the funding part of it, it still needs to fit the mission of the dollars staying local where we are here in this region again. And we're looking at impact. So, you know, it's a two-way street. The other thing is if you're looking for board members and whatnot, I actually keep track and I send out communications to the employees that there are board openings available. And if it's something that they're interested in, I basically connect the organization and the employee together, and it's up to the two of them to figure out if it's a win-win, you know, for the organization and the employee. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's very helpful, Alyssa. Thank you so much.
I think another thing that we do at Dermody is we actually have a not-for-profit sector in our business. We serve that industry. So if we have an emerging leader or a person that's interested in a not-for-profit, they can go to, say, one of our managers or partners in that side of the business and talk to them about that not-for-profit and get the information instantaneously. So that's very helpful too. So they can have a mentor to say, okay, say I'm interested in Arise. Okay, great. Here's a little bit of information you can maybe get from Charity Navigator, or here's some information you can get from this source. So you can understand a little bit more about the not-for-profit. And then from there, like I mentioned before, we do training. So that's another way of helping people get involved in this area of the business.
I can share an initiative that's taking place right now. Katie Hanlon and others who are involved in the call, very excited about. Central New York has a coalition of folks who have gotten together to band together to provide a platform, an electronic platform, online platform for our community called Board Strong. This is a platform that's been launched in New York City and in Buffalo. And United Way, Nancy has kind of taken this on in the leadership role, but it's supported by the foundation and CenterState and me and some others. And it's going to be an online platform where individuals can take board training at their own convenience online. They can upload their resume, and then nonprofit organizations can upload their mission and open committee and board positions that they will have. And then through the world of match.com, woohoo, there'll be a match. Now, this is exactly as it is. It's an online platform. I believe it's the minimum this community needs. But what the cohort has agreed to do is make sure that when it's up and running, that our community will have one-stop shopping, which I think is a brilliant thing. I post open positions on the LGS board, our LGS website, and then Rob Simpson gets calls all the time, and United Way gets calls all the time, etc. So stay tuned. It's a work in progress. It's called Board Strong. It's a group of well-committed people who are going to have this online platform available, coming to you soon. Katie Hanlon, is there anything more you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I was very excited that got teed up so easily.
I know, they walked right into it, didn't they?
Exactly. It's going to be great. We had a call the other day about the group in Buffalo and how they're doing it, and they've just seen tremendous success. So I think it's really going to benefit our community.
And this is by no means a guaranteeing someone they're going to get a board, and there's no guaranteeing that a board is going to accept someone. These are exploratory conversations. This is, okay, I work at M&T Bank. I have an employee who's interested. They go online and they have a conversation. This is not about slamming people on boards, but at least the folks who are going on boards will have some background about what it is the responsibility of being on a board. And of course, there's Nourishing Tomorrow's Leaders, which is an in-person training program in our community that will be open in the fall. And of course, that is more robust, but because it's relationships too. So cool. Was there another question? We're coming up. You, Sun Park, I think you had a question.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Thanks for hosting this, guys. This is amazing. I'm co-founder of DM Life, and we're very active in Central New York. And, I did ask the question about the platforms because we actually see the need for organizations, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, who need to be able to manage all the moving parts of whatever initiative and their missions are. So we've been working with Syracuse University, and they've been launching a lot of stuff for their Healthy Mondays. And, I guess my question to save some time here is, it sounds like there are lots of existing, you said over 3,000 nonprofits, and also there are for-profits who are very much involved, giving back and stuff. Is there a good way to make an introduction for organizations who might need something like a management platform where you can manage, the donations coming in, the donors you're interacting with, the volunteers that you guys have to organize, and all your team members who are actually helping you organize everything? So, because we do everything, and it would be nice to just be able to help.
I know on the charitable giving side, there are platforms for giving away money or receiving money. I know when I worked at the Upstate Foundation for a while, there are amazing platforms for tracking donations. I can't remember the name of the software. But again, I don't know if there's a holistic group that does volunteerism as well.
Yeah.
I can plug that from an equitable standpoint. Cyber Grants is a great tool that can do the whole enchilada. It can do your matching gifts, volunteerism, ERGs, really great opportunity to branch into that avenue. I believe Blackbaud is also another platform that could encompass that. They're really upping their game. So they can also probably create a platform for all that information too.
Yeah, we use Blackbaud, so we track donors, volunteers, financial, and all through Blackbaud. So that's what we use.
I just wanted to make note that the CNY Community Foundation in the last few years has really been investing in this networking opportunity for leadership, nonprofit leadership, and organizations that might be more established and those that are just launching, and offering not just this network opportunity, but some training associated with that. And there's some of those organic connections that take place. So I know that they have been doing it. It's something I was a part of a handful of years ago. There's some mentoring for leaders or leadership from a staffing perspective, management, middle management, but also, again, it's a great way to have these kinds of conversations. What platform are you using? How are you recruiting volunteers? And then finding what other resources, like the one that's up and coming, which is really exciting, connecting these nonprofits with that. So I know there's been a number who have gone through, and I think they're always trying to think of new ways to help nonprofits as well, with that expertise and resources.
Thank you, Beth. I think you and I are both graduates of the Marcellus Executive Director Program, right? And you know how it is when you get with people who are doing exactly what you do, and the bonding that you get, and you can kind of cry a little bit and celebrate and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot to be said for that, no matter what your profession is. And it's been great that the Community Foundation has pulled some executive directors together to have that camaraderie. It's been fantastic. So we're coming to the close. Thank you, everyone, for the panelists for putting your contact information. I know all of them. Well, Tim, I haven't really met, but I know that they'd be available to answer any more questions for you. I want to thank you all for coming to today's session. I hope you learned a lot. It seems like there was a lot of knowledge shared. Thank you to the for-profit folks for sharing their strategy, their process. Thank you, CenterState CEO, for putting this platform together. We really appreciate it. There are resources in the community, in the for-profit sector, if you want to take this to the next level. Leadership Greater Syracuse is offering a program called the ROI of Civic Engagement. So I can come to your workplace and work with your leadership team to help you put a plan together and be strategic. So I put my stuff in my contact information in there as well. So if you want to take your leadership or your commitment to the community to a different level and want to be more strategic, Leadership Greater Syracuse is here for you. And of course, CenterState offers the Executive Leadership Development Series that I would recommend. I'm a teacher in that as well. So I kick this back off. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Beth, anything more?
Yes, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of our panelists, Tim, Alyssa, Lisa, Penny, Linda. especially to Beth and also Pam, who did a fantastic job moderating. And I was excited to have such a dynamic group of panelists and esteemed business leaders from our community involved. So thank you so much. And I did want to remind everybody, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that check out the CenterState CEO website for more events or upcoming opportunities like this event that we all attended this morning. We also have a whole section of our website dedicated to COVID-19 resources. And then our social media platforms, obviously we'd love if you could follow those. And then if you have any questions or anything that CenterState CEO can do to be helpful to you, please use the email address on the screen, support@centerstateceo.com. Thank you very much, everybody.